Hey guys, here we go again. We're doing another video on celebrities through different spiritual personality type systems. So the three that I'm going to be looking at are Michael teachings, Vedic astrology, and human design. So I'm going to separate out the video into those three sections. So if somebody wants to go visit one of those sections and skip the other ones, you can. Well, it'd be easy to do that. My last video I made was at like an hour and a half that I made for Kanye West. So I get pretty deep into this stuff, but I want to cover everything and explain everything as much as I can. So it's the reason it comes out that long. But each system I cover for about half an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Michael teachings first, then I'll do Vedic astrology, and then I'll do human design. So the first one for Aleister Crowley, who's the topic of discussion today, is Michael teachings. So in case you guys don't know what Michael teachings is, it's like the system that talks about your reincarnational cycle and your soul characteristics, which stay the same. Most of them stay the same throughout all your lives, incarnating on planet Earth. And other ones change based on the life that you're having. So as an overview, I have this little image here. The characteristics that stay the same for him here are the role, which is priest, his secondary, or the casting, which is primarily scholar, his essence twin, which is a king. All those stay the same, but his focus, which is striving, is only for this life and for the lives a little bit before and after his current life. His goal, which is dominance, his attitude, which is pragmatist, his mode, which is power, his centering, which is intellectual, his obstacle, which is stubbornness, and his body type, which is jovial. So Michael teachings is a very interesting system, but not a lot of people know about it or how it works. But basically, all this information that I have here, and I have a more full-fledged chart here with more information that I'll cover. Yeah, so it's all channeled information. So there's this guy, Shepherd Hoodwin. This is his website. He does chart channelings by looking at a photo of you and tuning into you, and then he contacts beings on the other side, which is the Michael entity. That's what Michael teachings is based on. It's an entity which is actually a group of 1,000 souls that identify as Michael. So it's actually 1,000 souls, but they go by the name Michael because that was the last soul that stopped incarnating before they went to the higher planes of existence. His name was something like Michael, so that's why they call it Michael teachings. It's not the best name for a system, but that's just what it is. But this is probably my favorite one out of the three. Uh, so this page right here is the order page on Shepherd's website. His website is shepherdhoodwin.com. That's SHEPHERDHOODWIN.com. So you go to the order page and then you can fill out these forms and select a Michael reading chart. And you submit a photo, and that helps them tune into who you are. And your eyes need to be very visible, very clearly visible, so they can tune into your soul, basically. So it's pretty crazy how it works, but that's what they do. And all the charts that I've had channeled are super interesting and super accurate. So Shepherd's amazing. And I keep on ordering charts from him because I'm super curious about people and types. So that's his website. So I'll show you what his overall chart looks like. So there's two different aspects to the chart. There's the essence, which is all the characteristics that are the same in each life that you have. And then the overleaves are the characteristics that are just here for this life that you chose for this incarnation. So, uh, so Aleister Crowley is an occultist, a writer, a poet. He's like a mountaineer. He does a lot of stuff. But the biggest thing is he's built his own religion called Thelema, which is about the will and finding your true will and moving in life through life in accordance with your higher will, essentially. So, it's interesting because his role is a priest, which really fits with everything he's done with his occult stuff and all his spirituality and religion studies that he's done. So the priest is on the inspiration axis. It's yellow. This is what these colors is a system I came up with to help show how everything's aligned. So basically, these are all the characteristics that you can possibly choose from that are characteristics of your soul and your personality. So his is on the inspiration axis. That's where the priest is, right here. And it's a cardinal role, which means that it deals more with groups. So the other one is server, and server deals more with one-on-one, but they're both about inspiring people. So server is more inspired through one-on-one situations and really helping people. Maybe they'll cook for you or clean for you, whatever, take care of you in more concrete ways. But they are about inspiration, and they're very warm, and everybody likes servers. I mean, servers are awesome. But priests are the higher side of things, where they deal with groups. So the priest seeks the higher good. That's the goal of the priest. And in its positive pole, they express compassion, which is serving the higher good through empathetic love. When they're in their negative pole, it's called zeal, and that's when they're carried away by their ideas of the higher good, and perhaps they force their ideas on others, and the love factor doesn't really come through. But that's essentially what it is, because inspiration deals with your inner world and it deals with the emotions. So that's what a priest is. And you can see down here, these are all different souls that are priests. So Barack Obama is a priest, Martin Luther King Jr., Bernie Sanders. You can see there's a lot of political people here, and there's a lot of spiritual people here. So Wayne Dyer, Byron Katie, Alan Watts, some musicians like Bob Dylan, John Lennon, Freddie Mercury, Pope Francis, St. Francis of Assisi, some psychologists like Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, Helena Blavatsky, who's also a spiritual teacher and writer, Edgar Cayce, psychic, Mahatma Gandhi, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Satya Sai Baba. So you can see this. You put all those names together, you can see this is a priest. The priest wants to inspire people to the higher things and move them to the higher things. So that's why they get involved in politics. They get involved in religion. They get involved in music because they can communicate that way. And spirituality, any spiritual topics they're really drawn to. So this really fits with him really well that he's a priest. The next thing on here is his essence twin. So what essence twin is a soul that you chose to incarnate on this planet with, and you basically share each other's energies, and your relationship is for your spiritual growth. So this soul, it's always the same soul. You're always going to have the same essence twin throughout all your lives on Earth. It's going to be the same person, same soul. So his essence twin is a king, which seeks mastery. Mastery is self-control and excellence. And they're negative pole, they feel entitled to have their own way and tell us what to do. Famous kings are Jesus Christ, Buddha, Alexander the Great, Donald Trump, Steve Jobs, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and John F. Kennedy. So what happens when you have an essence twin, which is most of the time, not some people don't have them, like Barack Obama doesn't have an essence twin. He chose to just go solo throughout all his incarnations. But the vast majority of people have an essence twin. And his is discarnate, which means it's not incarnated right now. It's not in a physical body living out a life. They're all on the astral plane right now. Or during his time. It could be different in modern day. But during Aleister Crowley's time, his essence twin was discarnate. And what that means is that you basically get a boost of their energy. So he's kind of like a king. He's got some king characteristics. He wants to seek mastery and excellent self-control, all those kinds of things. They deal with groups, and it's a very action-oriented type. So they're all about action. So that's his essence twin. His casting, the casting is deals with like how you're positioned in your entity, and entity is a group of 1,000 souls that you're a part of. It's like your soul family. So the casting kind of gives you some different characteristics based on where you're positioned. So if you're positioned in a certain place, you'll have more of a scholar tint to you. So he's, in his case, he's got secondary of scholar from his casting. So he's like a priest, but he's also, I mean, he's mainly a priest, but he has some scholar characteristics, which deal with studying, gathering information, assimilating experiences, and then providing information for people based on the research that he's done, basically. And then he has a further secondary, which is artisan, which deals with creativity, invention. It's a very sensitive type, but it's really aligned with creativity. It's on the expression axis, so it brings the inner world outer. So he's got a good mix of things. He's got some priest, some king, scholar, and artisan. So he's not really necessarily doubling up on any particular axis. He's kind of a mix of a lot of stuff. But you can see his scholarliness for all the things he's studying. He does a lot of studying and writing, and artisan's good for him for it applies to him because he's a poet, so he does a lot of poetry, and he's done some painting and stuff like that. So that really fits with him really well. Let's talk about his cadre and entity a little bit. So the cadre and entity are the bigger groups of souls that we're a part of. So the cadre is actually a group of 7 entities, and an entity is a group of about 1,000 souls. So they're your soul family. The people that are in your cadre are your greater soul family. So usually, like what I notice, like for me, my family is all in the same cadre, but we're in different entities. So we're part of a bigger soul family, and you usually deal with people who are in your cadre. That's the people you encounter the most in all your lives. It's the ones you associate with the most. But his is cadre 3, which is just a number they assigned to this cadre. They don't have names necessarily, but the entity is a number from 1 through 7, and those align to the roles. And his is 7, so that's actually aligned with the king. You can see it's red. It matches the king color, so it's on the action axis. It deals with leadership and all the kingly things, mastery, different things like that. So the cadre, which is the bigger group, the notes they have for that is that they're about pioneering new consciousness. And cadre 3 entity 7 is a blending of diversities. They're psychic, harmonious, and spiritual. I think Ram Dass is in this entity. They also use the keyword sweetheart for this. The other people that are in Aleister Crowley's entity are Pamela Anderson, Neem Crowley Baba, which is a spiritual guru, George H.W. Bush, Ian Curtis, he's the singer of Joy Division, Ellen DeGeneres, Johnny Depp, Al Gore, Tom Hardy, Chris Hemsworth, Ashton Kutcher, Shia LaBeouf, Freddie Mercury, Barack Obama, and Brad Pitt. So those are all the people that are really close to him on a soul level. They're his soul brothers and sisters, essentially. So that's pretty cool. So his task companion is an artisan and it's discarnate. So he gets a little bit more of this creative flavor going on with his tasks. So this artisan task companion helps with all his tasks, and it brings in some originality, some creativity, invention, stuff like that. Other artisans are down here. You can see there's a lot of musicians and actors, and a lot of creatives are down there. David Bowie, Michael Jackson, Jim Morrison, those Walt Disney, Robert Downey Jr., Leonardo DiCaprio, Kurt Cobain. You can see those are all the artisans. So that's his task companion. So his orientation is to energy. There's three possible orientations you can have. It's either love, truth, or energy. So love is on the inspiration axis, deals with the emotional dimension of things. And truth deals with the expression axis and the intellect. And energy deals with more the physicality, the vitality, energy. So yeah, kinetic energy. It's also called beauty typically, but I like the word energy because it describes it a little bit better. But the people who are oriented to energy are really focused on the physical domain of things, and beauty, and this could also deal with like on the lower expression of things like war, but it's also like sex is deals with the energy aspect of things. So that's his orientation throughout each of his lives, is towards the more physical, energetic aspects of things, as opposed to love or truth. So I don't see this one as often, but I know I think Hitler is also an energy, and so is L. Ron Hubbard. So it's interesting to see that they're oriented in that. I'm also oriented in energy. So it's an interesting one. Everybody has a balance of male to female energy. His is 58% male, 42% female. What this means is the male is more has more emphasis on doing. Moves into the outer world in a linear way towards goals. So it's getting things done. It's very action oriented, outer focused. Positive pole is penetration. Negative pole is intrusion. And female energy is more creative energy as opposed to focused energy. And it's creative energy that emphasizes being more than doing. It's centered in the inner world, is diffuse, generates more of an atmosphere and new life. Positive pole is generation, and negative pole is chaotic destruction. So he's kind of balanced. It's in the middle range, but he's leaning more towards the male energy, which is more on the doing side. But a lot of spiritual people typically have some female energy, so he's got some of that balance there. But you can see that his focus is more on the doing side. And what's also interesting about this is that these percentages, like the 58 versus 42, this means that most of the time he's going to be male, but like in most of his lives. but he's going to be pretty balanced overall. He's going to have some female lives for sure. I did a video of Kanye West recently, and his male-female energy was 100% male. I didn't mention this in that video, but that could mean that he incarnates as male a lot more often than female, because the male energy is more aligned with the male body. And when you're a male, your male energy is kind of boosted. So it's interesting to note his frequency, which is the rate of vibration that you have. It's at 49 out of 100. So it's like right in the middle, which means he's not like, he doesn't move super fast or more slow and paced. He's kind of in the middle. So his energy frequency he'll feel more fluid to people as opposed to more solid or airy, because he's right in the middle range. So it's pretty average. A lot of people are in the middle range, actually. His previous cycles, he's got 10. And what previous cycles are the it indicates how many planets you were living on before you started incarnating on Earth. So a cycle is when you go through all the soul ages, which I'll explain a little bit later, which is different focus. It's like a linear timeline. You have to go through these stages to complete all your lessons on the physical plane. So he did all that, and he completed his cycle 10 times on 10 different planets before his current 11th cycle that he's on right now. It's a fairly high number, because the average previous cycles on the planet is 4. So it's more than that. But I notice a lot of people that I have charts of are at 10. It could be because I'm at 10 as well, and maybe I'm just attracted to people who are kind of more on the same perspective of me, but I do have some people that are higher. But just as a point of comparison, Jesus had 19 previous cycles when he incarnated as Jesus, which is a lot. That's the most that we know of of people that have incarnated on Earth. So 19 is a lot, but there's also places in the universe that are a lot more, like 50, 100, whatever, maybe 1,000, who knows. So we're kind of primitive overall. What's interesting is also that whales and dolphins have previous cycles too, and they have roles and all that stuff just like us too. So we could have chosen to be whales on this planet and then have a reincarnational cycle as a whale or dolphin if we chose to do that. So there are brothers and sisters in the ocean, basically, which is interesting. But their previous cycles on average are more than ours. So they're kind of more evolved in some sense. A person who had lower previous cycles in this was Hitler, Adolf Hitler. He had 7. So you can see Jesus 19, Hitler 7, Aleister Crowley's at 10. But I noticed too, people who have more previous cycles than this don't seem to be as spiritually evolved as others. So even though this does indicate how complex your soul is because of how much experience you've had in the past, it can still vary in terms of maturity, emotional maturity, spiritual maturity, all those kinds of things, especially also with the soul ages. That applies there too. Everybody's different. So yeah, that's his previous cycles. So everybody who incarnates has they choose a global job and a community responsibility that they maintain throughout all their lives on Earth. So his global job is a mix of the roles, the energies of the roles warrior and priest. Warriors really focus on action and doing. The priest is more about inspiration and salvation, higher things. So his global job is called usefulness. So it's all about like how useful can I be? How do I contribute something valuable that I leave behind? So everything that he's done in his life is about like focused on this. Like how can I leave something for other people that's useful for them? Um, he finds ways to excel. He trains himself, becomes skilled at what he does, and he's driven to educate himself. Um, so this applies to him, but he also encourages it in others. He wants others to be useful, educate themselves, find vocations, and contribute. He's a leading example of how to do that. But he's done a lot of research on different religions and different philosophies and different things, and wrote a lot because he wanted to leave something behind. So that's his global job. His community responsibility is equality, which is a mix of the roles, energies of priest and scholar. So the priest is and scholar mix fits for equality because you're seeing everybody as equally important in their uniqueness. You need to have clarity to see the higher perspective of equality. That everybody's unique, everybody has their own path and has a different purpose, and we're all unique in that sense. We're all different, but we're all equal in the sense that we are all unique. So that's kind of his perspective, as his community responsibility is highlighting the equality that everybody has. And this community responsibility is the same one I have. I also have equality as mine. So it's cool to see. So that is all his characteristics of his essence. So all that stuff is the same in all his lives. He's always going to be a priest. He's going to have a king essence twin, scholar and artisan secondaries, artisan task companion. He's going to be the same cadre entity, always oriented in energy, same male female energy frequency, all that. Same global job, community responsibility. So that's all the same in each of his lives. But now we're moving on to his overleaves, which are just characteristics that apply to this particular life that he lived as Aleister Crowley. So I'll look first into his soul age, or focus, as it's called. His focus is striving, which is related to action. It's the third soul age. So down here you can see the timeline of the different soul ages or focuses that you can have. So everybody starts off in surviving, which is also known as infant, which deals with getting comfortable with the body and understanding how it works and how to survive on the planet, how to get food, shelter, clothing, the bare essentials of life. And you kind of get put in harsh natural world situations, like you'll deal with tsunamis, hurricanes, or lions after you, snakes biting you, shit like that, because you need to learn how to survive. And then after that you go into structuring, which is also known as the baby soul age, which deals with integrating with society, following rules, living under some kind of structure and finding out the right way to do things, essentially. So he's been through those two, and he's in striving now, which is also known as the young soul age. And he's on this level 7. So there's 7 levels to each of these soul ages. And he's on the 7th one, which aligns with the king energy because it's this red color. It's the final stage of striving, which means that he's kind of in a position of teaching people the right, like, how to do striving. he's exemplifying for everybody, this is how you strive, this is how you achieve, this is how you become worldly successful. Um, so the positive pole of this is accomplishment, which is asserting your individuality in a way that helps the world. But the negative pole is self-centeredness, which is individuality is defined in terms of apparent short-term advantage to self. So he's on the last stage of striving, and which means he's starting to get gain perspective of the next stage, which is relating, or the mature soul age, which deals more with the inner world, not so much the outer world. So it's like the emotions, relationships, going deep inside yourself, the inner world. And then teaching is also known as like contextualizing or philosophizing. It's where you kind of reflect on everything that you've gone through, and you uh, come to an understanding of how life works, what you have to teach other people through all your experiences that you've learned. And that's the final soul age before you stop incarnating on Earth. So he hasn't gotten into relating or teaching yet. Maybe at this point he's reincarnated. I'm not sure. But if he is, then he might be in the early stages of relating now. So he's more than halfway done with the reincarnational cycle. But then there's like stages after this that deal with the astral and causal planes and the higher planes of existence before you start merging with source again. So yeah, once you're done with your reincarnational cycle, you start combining with your entity and then your cadre, and then you become part of what they just call the Tao or God, just beingness itself, and everything. And it's kind of like a rest at the end of the whole cycle. So then at that stage, you just wait until you're ready to start the journey again and start a new cycle, and you go to another planet and you do this whole soul age timeline again. And so we just keep on doing this over and over and over again, going through these stages, going to different planets and gaining new experiences, taking on new roles and different personality characteristics to achieve the things that we want to achieve as an individual soul. And we just do that forever. It never ends. We get a break, but it keeps on going. So that's essentially how it works. So his goal is dominance, which emphasizes learning to facilitate group action. You're kind of in the positive pole, it's leadership. You become authoritative, determined, outgoing, capable. You have a win-win attitude, and you're governing. So he's showing the way for people in terms of what he's teaching about, what he's doing. He's the authority. He's the one leading. And people are following his example. People look up to him, stuff like that. And the negative pole is dictatorship. You could be dictatorial, demanding, pushy, overwhelming, insensitive, selfish. Could have an I win, you lose attitude. Be controlling and dominating. But the right way to do it is to have a win-win attitude, and everything you're doing and teaching about, the example you have is for the good of everybody. So this is aligns with the king energy because it's red like this. It's the action axis stuff. So that is his goal, is dominance. His attitude, which is the way that you approach things, the way you see things, your perspective. His is pragmatist. So it essentially means you see the world in terms of what works best or most efficiently. Positive pole is practicality. You're practical, efficient, simple, functional, a sensible rule maker. And the negative pole is dogma. So you're dogmatic, opinionated, narrow-minded, rigid, creates red tape. They're preachy, anal retentive. So he could have certain ways that he goes about things and things that he thinks is the most efficient way to do things, but it might not necessarily be that way in the negative pole. He could be too rigid, but in the positive pole, he's using the best workable approach for things. So that's his attitude. His mode is power. And modes are how you release your energy, and power means you release it strongly. Um, and when you have this uh, paired with the goal of dominance, it's pretty intense because he's going to be a leader and coming up in front of everybody, but he's going to be expressing himself super strongly too. So it's just a very powerful combination and pretty intense. So for this is the positive pole is authority. He has a confident, commanding presence. And the negative pole is oppression, which is he's more threatening, pushy, and bullying. So it's a pretty intense one because you're releasing energy in a very strong way. So that's his mode. So in our overleaves, we always choose 2 centers that we operate in most of the time. This is his primary one, his first center, and it's intellectual. So it just deals with the intellectual plane of things. The positive pole is thought, which is considering information in a more organic and alive manner rather than more mechanically. And the negative pole is reason, which is more mechanical. So it's like you're using reason, but you're not using more of an intuitive process. But yeah, so he basically filters all his experiences through his intellect primarily. And his secondary is emotional, which is, the emotional aspects of things. It's pretty straightforward. Uh, Positive pole is sensibility, ability to feel is fully developed. And negative pole is sentimentality, feeling is cloying and open to manipulation. So he's intellectual and emotional mix. So he's learning a lot about that through experiencing those centers primarily. His obstacle, his main obstacle is stubbornness. Usually people have 2 obstacles, and he does have 2. His main one is stubbornness, which is a fear of change. So you kind of stick to what you think is the right way of approaching things, and you're kind of afraid of changing uh, how you deal with stuff. And so, in the positive pole is determination. It's still negative in this description because obstacles are uh, characteristics that we take on that makes life harder. It's challenges for us to overcome. So he's learning to overcome stubbornness. Uh, in the negative pole, it's obstinacy, which is unyielding resistance to change despite the pleas of others or extreme consequences. So that's his main obstacle is stubbornness, fear of change. And his secondary one is martyrdom, which is feeling of being unworthy. It's a fear of being unworthy. So you might feel all the time, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. He'd suffer needlessly in an attempt to earn worth. The positive pole is selflessness, but yeah, it's suffering needlessly because of a lack of feeling not worthy. Negative pole is mortification, which is practicing extreme self-denial. So that's his combination. He has stubbornness and martyrdom, fear of change and fear of being unworthy. Everybody has 2 primary body types that they choose. And the body types they do have physical characteristics, but they're also energetic things too. So like when you come up to somebody, you can feel their energy, and they have these body types. The energy of your body type is radiating off of you, and it interacts with people in different ways. So there's certain body types that are paired with other ones better. So like your energy will just be attracted to certain types, and there's a mutual attraction between the opposite types. So like sexual experiences will be more intense when you have a pairing with your opposite body type, essentially. Um, So his is jovial, which is aligns with the planet Jupiter. So it's a lot like Jupiter. If you look at the physical descriptions, it's full bodied. It's the most developed body type. Um, it's grand, extroverted. The archetype is the emperor. So yeah, it's grand, generous, compassionate, kind, loyal, caring, affectionate, maternal, lucky, philosophical, focused on the arts and languages, well-directed mental powers, highly evolved appreciation for life, and powerful presence. Those are all the positive characteristics of it. The negative is subject to periodicity, self-indulgent, extravagant, conceited, wasteful, craving attention, and overwhelming. So he just has this big presence that's very positive, like Jupiter, but it's jovial. So that's his main body type, and his secondary is lunar. People who have a lunar body type are usually pale skinned, have round faces. They're slow to react, but they excel at abstract thought. They're kind of negative. The body type is negative. But that's more, I mean, this is like the moon. So it's like really connected with the mind. So the archetype for this is genius. People with this body type, there's some association with the mathematics as like they're often genius and really good with mathematics. But they're calm, methodical, passive, patient, tenacious, maternal, sympathetic, receptive, detail oriented, and like I said, mathematical. Those are like all characteristics of the moon if you think about it. And the negative is moody, introspective, cold-hearted, incommunicative, willful, stubborn, unforgiving, depressive, and destructive, which are more negative characteristics. So he's got a combination of jovial and lunar, which is essentially the emperor plus the genius. So those are interesting archetypes to see operating in him. His quadrant is knowledge, which means that when he's in a group setting, he takes on the role of the person who's providing knowledge or information for everybody else, which does fit with everything he does. Everything he does is providing information because he writes books and poetry, and that's just his approach. It seems like is knowledge. The other ones for the quadrants are love, support, and power. Mine is knowledge too, so that's the same approach. I'm used to that. His needs, there's 9 needs to choose from. His main ones are adventure, security, and expansion. So adventure is doing anything that feels like an adventure to you, but having fun things to do that make you feel like you're having an adventure. Security, which deals more with like finances and safety and everything you need to be secure. Expansion, which is just growing in different areas. It could be wealth, information, knowledge, experience, but it's growing, expanding. So those are all the characteristics of his overleaves there, and that we just covered his whole Michael chart. So if you look at his chart overall, he's got a good mix of different axes that he's engaging in. I mean, he's primarily a priest, but he's got some action-oriented stuff like the energy orientation, dominance, goal, striving, focus, and the king essence twin that he has. So those are all the action-oriented ones he's got. But he also has some of the scholar-like energy from his secondary scholar and his pragmatist attitude. So he's not really like full on any one, but I would say the action-oriented stuff is big. Studying for the scholar, the intellectual plane of things is important for him, and knowledge. So he's got expression axis body type and an inspiration axis body type. So he's really mixed. But the big things here that you can tell is he's got this dominance and power thing, which is a crazy combination. It's a very powerful combination for how he expresses himself and leads. So he's a prominent figure. He's an authority for sure. And it's interesting to see a priest in the striving soul age, or the young soul age, which is the striving focus, and him being on level 7. So he's teaching about achievement essentially. But he's starting to move into the relating focus as well. So yeah, so he's a good mix. He's well-rounded, able to do a lot of things with all these different influences that he has. But primarily he's a priest all the way. If you think about what he does, he deals with religion and philosophy and the occult, spirituality, the arts too, which helps with he comes from the artisan secondary he has, dealing with poetry and painting, different things like that. So yeah, that's his Michael chart. It's very interesting to look at. So I'm going to go into his Vedic astrology now. And you'll see some characteristics that are the same. That's going to be talking about some similar things in here, from his Vedic astrology. So here's his chart. This is the North Indian style chart of Vedic astrology. I use Vedic astrology as opposed to Western astrology because the Western astrology has some weird ways of calculating things. The zodiac calculation they use is actually inaccurate to the stars. So when you say that the sun is in Aries, it's actually not in Aries. It's most of the time it's in Pisces. And the two zodiacs, the sidereal versus tropical, are getting further removed from each other. The sidereal zodiac, which is what Vedic astrology uses, is always aligned to the constellations. So when you see like his ascendant here is a Cancer, that means that the constellation of Cancer was rising on the eastern horizon when he was born. And then, the sun was in Virgo when he was born, and his moon was in the constellation of Pisces. So these are the actual placements. What you see in your Vedic chart are like the real placements of where everything is. When you look at a Western chart, everything's off by 24 degrees. It's 24 degrees ahead of its actual placements, which is actually like a whole sign. So it's like a whole sign off. So you don't want to look at that because it's going to give you inaccurate information. It's not going to be the real information that you want to look at. So the really only choice to be accurate is to use Vedic astrology. So that's what I use. It also uses the whole sign house system. So which makes a lot of sense because each house in here is going to have one sign taking up the whole house, which is just a very elegant way to do things. Otherwise, like in Western astrology, they use different systems, which aren't as elegant. So yeah, this is his North Indian style chart. Up here, this top diamond is the first house, and then you count around the edges here to count all the houses. So this first house has Cancer in it. Second house is Leo, it's the fifth sign. Third house is Virgo, and it has Sun and Ketu there. Fourth house is Libra, it has Venus, Jupiter, Mercury there. Fifth house has Scorpio. Sixth is Sagittarius. Seventh is Capricorn, it has Mars and Saturn there. Eighth is Aquarius. Ninth house is Pisces, and it has Moon and Rahu there. His 10th house is Aries. His 11th house is Taurus, and his 12th house is Gemini. So yeah, these are all the positions of all the placements of his planets. So I'll go into detail on all the little aspects of the rulerships and some of the conjunctions and different things here, and the different signs he's got. So his ascendant is Cancer, or his rising sign. It's ruled by the moon. It's learning about the nature of emotions. It's peaceful, kind, romantic, gentle, changeable, and fickle. It seeks perfection. Its skills are best used in the material realm. It's very aware of money, deals with finance as well. The ascendant is in the nakshatra called Pushya, and the nakshatras are like the sub constellations inside the signs. There's about 2 to 3 different nakshatras per sign, and so they have a little bit different characteristics based on which one it's placed in. Um, the divisions were based on the moon, because the moon is in one nakshatra per day. It's about 13 degrees per nakshatra, and each zodiac sign is 30 degrees, so that's why it's 2 to 3 different nakshatras. So yeah, so his is Pushya, and it's ruled by Saturn. It means the nourisher or nurturer. It's about preserving, protecting, replenishing, multiplying, and strengthening. It's the enjoyment of wealth and prosperity. So that's his ascendant. His sun is in Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. Virgo deals with healing. It deals with it's a service-oriented sign. It's good with details. It's orderly, clean, witty, intellectual, and a hard worker. They get a lot done. They're really hardworking, kind of perfectionistic, very logical, and it's an Earth sign too. So that's Virgo. That's his sun. It's in the nakshatra called Chitra, which is ruled by Mars, which means reflection or beautiful picture. It means you're immersed in the material world, creative, full of ideas, artistic, and has courage and confidence to externalize their potential. So his sun is in the third house. Third house with the sun there gives you great willpower. You excel in fields that require diligence and concentration, especially in communications, advertising, and public relations, which are all third house significations. Communications is a big thing. Advertisement is big. But third house also deals with courage, bravery, adventure, being persevering, ambitious, stuff like that. It's also deals with writing, the fine arts such as music, dance, and drama. So he is engaged in writing quite a bit. And he does deal with the fine arts too, because he's a poet and he's done some painting and different things like that. So that's his son. So something I wanted to point out that's really interesting about his chart is that he has the sun and the moon with Ketu and Rahu. And Ketu and Rahu are the eclipse points for the moon and sun. So when the sun is with Ketu and the moon's with Rahu, or the other way around, like moon with Ketu and sun with Rahu, that indicates that the person was born during a lunar eclipse where the earth blocks out the light from the moon. The sun can't eclipses. Well, there's a lunar eclipse that happens. And when they're together, then there's a solar eclipse. So the sun is being blocked by the moon instead of the other way around. So this is an interesting thing. It's hard to know exactly what it does when you have a lunar eclipse, but some very prominent and successful people have stuff like this happening. But when sun is with K2, it means that he was working on his solar nature in previous lives, the sun. So basically, anything that's with K2 means you were working on this aspect a lot. So he was working on this solar leadership, authority, ego, energy a a lot in previous lives, and in this life he had to come in and kind of finalize that, find the way to deal with the sun energy the best way. But this brings strong psychic energy, and it means that you'll experience a rebirth, extreme transformation in this incarnation, which could be some kind of enlightenment experience that he had during his life, and he's talked about that through different experiences he's had. So it makes you really willful. It can give you extreme anger, a hot temperament, regality, intense concentration, deep perception, and penetrating insight. So that's what happens when the sun's with K2. But this signifies like an old soul in some sense, like a lot of deeply spiritual people have sun with K2. Because sun is a very personal planet, so it's pretty intense signification. So that's very interesting. So the sun rules the second house and is in the third. So you can see Leo is here. That's the fifth sign. And sun is in the third house. So this makes the connection between the second house and third house. And second house is wealth. And third house is like communications. So he's got a strong desire to earn wealth through communication stuff. It could be music, dance, or drama, but it's also like writing, anything where you communicate. So that's how he went about building wealth, is through his writing, essentially, and his communicating. His moon is in Pisces, which totally fits for him. It's a very spiritual position. It's impressionable, emotional, intuitive, spiritual, or religious. They love rituals. They're compassionate. They have strong faith, and they're prone to addictions. So this really fits for him because he's very spiritual. He has his own religion that he came up with, which is Thelema. But it's ruled by Jupiter. It's interesting. It says he's prone to addictions because he actually was. He had a lot of addictions in his life. He was struggling with heroin for a long time. But that's something that can happen with people that have personal planets in Pisces. So that's interesting to see. The nakshatra that the moon is in is Purvabhadra. It's also ruled by Jupiter. It means beautiful, auspicious, blessed, grace, or happy. Blessings come from good deeds from past lives. He has good luck and fortune, wealth, good family, excellent relationships, and wonderful children. I'm not sure if he had children. He did have some relationships, but we'll get into that because he's got some pretty harsh significations for his relationships. His moon is in the 9th house. So that's going to be a big area for him, is 9th house stuff. You can see down here, moon and Rahu in the 9th, which we'll talk about. This is really big too because his chart ruler is the moon, because Cancer is his ascendant. So his self, which is the first house, is connected to 9th house stuff. So this means that with the moon there, he experiences luck, fortune, and success by divine grace. 9th house is the best house in a chart. It's the most positive. It's like Jupiter energy, kind of, because it's Sagittarius is the natural match for 9th house, as it's the 9th sign. Makes him philosophical. He gains a good deal of wisdom. Enjoys long distance travel, which is very true. He visits foreign countries, learning about foreign cultures, benefits from foreigners. He did a lot of traveling all over the globe, and he was a mountaineer, and he climbed a bunch of mountains and stuff, and he was always visiting new places, learning new things about other cultures, and incorporating all that stuff into his own philosophy, essentially. So a lot of long distance travel. So this is really important. This is probably the most important position to look at because it's his chart ruler. And it's conjunct Rahu, like I was saying, which is a very interesting thing. Because moon is like your mind, it's your emotional self, but also your mind overall. So his mind is connected with Rahu, and so it's kind of it's gotten a boost of energy because it's kind of grander in some sense, but it brings like psychic sensibilities, subtle perception, and you can tap into unseen realms. You can tap into higher celestial realms or lower demonic realms, depending on the evolutionary level of the soul. I'm not sure which one he did. He could have done both. He's kind of into this demonic stuff a bit, on the darker side of things a bit. His mom called him the Beast, and he loved that. So he just adopted the like beast uh persona. But I think he did deal with demons and angels and all that stuff, and he probably could see and relate to them and communicate with them. So, like I was saying, it emphasizes the darker side of the lunar nature, with emotional and psychological disturbances. There can be fears and phobias, isolation, lunacy, hallucination, illusion, and paranoia. That's in the lower aspect of things, but it makes you psychic and and attached to subtle perception. So that's really interesting to see because I think he was doing some like astral projection and different things like that he taught about. So it's really interesting. And like I was saying here, Moon rules the first house because it's Cancer there and it's in the ninth. This is the most important position for his whole chart. It gives him strong interest in religion, philosophy, and higher knowledge because this means that his self, the first house, is connected to religion, philosophy, higher knowledge. Much travel, like I was saying, excellent luck, wealthy, fortunate, prosperous, gains from father. I mean, he got all his money from his father when he was younger, so he lived off that for a long time. Uh, High morals, religious minded, and it can make you respected or famous. It gives you a healthy and powerful long life and gives you strong dharma, which is like duty and purpose for this life. So this is really important because he engaged in philosophy and religion, higher knowledge, so much so that he built his own religion, which is Thelema. Um, so this is very clearly true for him. That ninth house is very prominent in his life. So that's pretty cool to see. So this is interesting. His Mars is in the seventh house. Um, this gives him endurance and he can exert his desires above others, makes him powerful and successful. Um, Mars there in the seventh house, it deals with business. Seventh house is like business. So it gives him talent in business, makes him outgoing and sociable, fulfills his daily desires quickly and easily, practical and down to earth, good with mechanical and technical fields. But this is something called Kuja dosha when Mars is in the seventh house or the first house. Whenever it's affecting the seventh house, it kind of disturbs your relationships and makes things tough. Like you don't want Mars involved in your relationships because that's just like anger and fighting and all the hard stuff. It means that his married life is discordant. He may get married early due to physical attraction, but he may fight with spouse which leads to divorce. I think he was married a couple times. But he's attracted to partners who are assertive, fiery, aggressive, argumentative, and physical. So that's just the kind of partners he had. But marriage isn't really an easy thing for him because of this position. So Mars rules the fifth because Scorpio is there, and it's in the seventh. So this makes you a healthy, confident, charismatic, have a good mind, strong passions. Fifth house is like the mind. Uh, and 7th house is spouse or business. So 5th house is also past life credit. So wherever the ruler of the 5th house is, you're gonna have a connection to past life credit in that sense. So he actually has past life credit connected to his spouse or to business. So business is supposed to go really well for him. He's supposed to have a good spouse connection, past life credit in that sense, but because Mars is there in the 7th, it also disturbs his marriage. Like it says he has happy marriage, maybe that's an aspect, beautiful or intelligent or devoted spouse. But like I was saying, it kind of goes against that with the Mars being in 7th, creating Kuja dosha. Mars is ruling the 10th and is in the 7th. So you can see Aries is in the 10th house and Mars is in the 7th. This means his career, because 10th house's career is involved in trading or business. Business 7th house. Career involves spouse or partner. So because that's 7th house. So partners are a really big thing in his career. His career is essentially connected to partners of different kinds. He profits through partnerships and joint ventures because of this. So now let's look at his 4th house. Well, Mercury is in the 4th house. What this means is when Mercury is in the 4th house, he moves often, may live in many different cities during his youth. He will own land, homes, and transportation. He inherited a lot from his family, actually. He was really rich when he was younger, but I think maybe they did move a lot. It makes you skilled in intellectual and educational activities. Will have a fine education and earn a good degree. Knowledge and information are extremely important to happiness because Mercury is knowledge and information, and 4th house is happiness. So that really fits for him. I mean, his quadrant was knowledge. He's got some scholar secondaries from Michael teachings. So that's a big thing, and it's interesting that it's saying he has a fine education, earns a good degree. I mean, education is a big thing. That's part of the 4th house too, is education, which really fits with his global job, which was usefulness and getting yourself educated. So education is a big thing. And so all these planets here are kind of relating to education in that sense, but especially Mercury because it's more of the intellectual stuff. But this kind of reinforces why he's been so educated and has learned so many different things. He's always seeking more. He does well in trading or business, may become involved in writing, teaching, communications, or media. This is because, I mean, his career is also influenced by this because all these planets, like Mercury, is actually aspecting the house opposite from it, which is the 10th house, the career. So his career is actually connected to writing and teaching, communications, and media. Lots of Mercury significations there. So that's interesting. Mercury rules the 3rd and is in the 4th. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's in the 4th. So there you go, right there. Means efforts and adventures may involve land or real estate. There's a lot of significations that I notice for real estate in here too, because he's got 3 planets there. I don't know all the details about his real estate, but he did own a home that was kind of isolated from everywhere. It's a famous home. Jimmy Page, the guitarist of Led Zeppelin, actually bought his home at one point and lived in it. So I don't know how important that aspect is of land, but there's a lot of significations that I'm seeing here for that. So he's dealing with land in some sense. So this is interesting. His Mercury rules the 12th house and is in the 4th. 12th house is like spirituality, but it's also loss, and it's kind of negative things. So it makes things tougher, whatever it's connected to. And fourth house is mother. So if we see here, Gemini is in the 12th house, and Mercury rules Gemini is in the fourth. So this means that he has loss and hardships and stuff related to mother. So that means that there's no happiness from mother. Mother has a hard life. There's few comforts and little happiness. He could also have career difficulties, many changes in the career, but it's excellent for real estate. This is true with his mother. He didn't have a really good relationship with his mother. Like I was saying, his mother called him the beast, and he was bisexual. He was having sex with men. They didn't like that, especially at the time. It was like illegal to have sex with men, which is strange, but that's just how it was at the time. So he was actually fighting that a lot. And just the stuff that he engaged in with his philosophies and spirituality and the occult and stuff was kind of going against what his mother believed, who was very religious, very hardcore Christian, essentially. So he was very rebellious against his mother, didn't have a good relationship with her. But there's other significations that things were good, but this is the one that says that it wasn't so good, which is my understanding. Okay, so let's look at his Jupiter now. It's also in the fourth house, right there. Gives you a spacious home, happy home life. Home is a happy meeting place for friends and family. Makes you fortunate, happy, and content. Gives you a good upbringing. Generous and warm-hearted. Will inherit maternal wealth. Loves spiritual knowledge. He loves spiritual knowledge because fourth house is like what you love, what's dear to your heart, and Jupiter is spiritual knowledge. Significations of that. It aspects the 10th house, so career is successful because Jupiter is a benefic. Gains fame or recognition, and career is going to be related to Jupiter things. So like he has a career in spiritual subjects, which is such as yoga, meditation, religion, or astrology. And he engaged in all those things. He learned all these different yoga techniques, meditation. He combined a lot of ideas from different religions for his own religion or his own philosophy. And he did engage in some astrological system stuff with like his Thoth deck that he made. His tarot deck all has the significations of the different signs, zodiac signs in the cards of the deck. So this is really big for him. Jupiter is totally involved in his career and his spiritual stuff. Jupiter is ruling the 6th and is in the 4th. 6 is a difficult house, so there's discord with mother. 6th house is also enemies too, so it's like mother is an enemy in some sense. Could be this case. There could be difficulty owning land. Unhappy, hard to obtain a degree, little or no ancestral inheritance, and few fixed assets. But these significations are kind of counteracted also in different places, where he actually had significations of having a great degree and owning land and different things like that. But this does show some significations of the opposite a little bit. Jupiter is in the rules the 9th because Pisces is there, and it's in the 4th. So this is happiness and benefits from mother. Mother is religious or of good character. Like I was saying, she is religious. He didn't get so much happiness from her, unfortunately. Like we were seeing significations of that earlier. But he did gain property from her. Enjoyed many comforts, owns land and homes, had a good education, like I was saying, high degree. Religion may be dear to heart because 9th house is religion, 4th house is what's dear to your heart. And that gives you a boost in career success and status. Because 9th house is like luck. So he gets boost in career because Jupiter is aspecting the 10th house, which is career. So that's what's going on there. Okay, so let's look at his Venus. Venus is in the 4th house. Right there. So this is good because it's actually in the sign of Libra, so it's in its own sign, so it's happy there. It's really expressing itself in its best way, to be in its own sign. Means you're brimming with happiness and contentment. You're adored by all. Fine education. There you go again. Prestigious degree. There you go. Wealthy, owns plenty of land and fixed assets. Makes you artistically gifted and may choose an artistic career, which is true for him because he did a lot of poetry, which is the big thing. It's like, that's interesting because poetry is a mix of Mercury and Venus significations, because Venus is the arts, poetry is more artistic, but he did a lot of writing, so writing is poetry. So that's how that works. Like I was saying, Venus is in the fourth and rules the fourth, so this gives more happiness, many comforts, owns land, kind of significations what I just said. Good degree. It's good for spiritual life because the fourth house is like very spiritual as well. It's a moksha house, a water house. Venus rules the 11th and is in the fourth. So you can see here, Taurus is there, which is ruled by Venus. So this connects his friends and groups to his happiness. Friends and groups bring happiness. He gets gains, which is 11th house, from real estate, wealth from mother, which is true. Enjoys holy pilgrimages, gets a good education, fine degree, and many comforts. So you can see there's all this education, fine degree stuff, like I was saying, which is very important for him. He got super educated. It felt like that was a very important thing. Like part of his global job and Michael teachings is usefulness. So getting educated was really big. So that's what we keep on seeing. It says he fulfills his major goals and desires. Okay. We'll just keep on going. This video is coming out a little bit longer than I was hoping, but that's okay. I'll split it into 3 sections. So let's look at Saturn. Saturn's in the 7th house with his Mars, and so these are both the malefics in his 7th house, which makes relationships hard. It says relationships and married life suffer. He's paying back karma for marriage from previous lives. Married life is tedious. He's likely to divorce, which is what happened. Spouse may be powerful or special, mature and spiritual. I think he had his first spouse was very spiritual, and he did a lot of stuff with her. It's powerful for longevity, real estate, discipline, and authority. It gives him long life, and he may do well in business. Having Saturn in the 7th house gives the discipline and authority related to business. Capricorn is in the 7th house and Saturn is there. So it's actually, it's in its own sign, but still Saturn is always malefic no matter what sign it is, but it's a little bit better to be in Capricorn. So this actually means a beautiful power or special spouse, but divorce is possible. It's good for business and trading. So business is good, but there's some difficulty with spouses, but there's some good certifications too. Saturn rules the 8th because Aquarius is there right here, the 11th sign, and it's in the 7th. Marriage problems, divorce, there we go again, unhappy or unsuccessful partnerships. The spouse could be metaphysical, psychic, or research oriented. These are all 8th house significations, metaphysical and psychic. So that's interesting to see. And I think that was the case with his first wife. Maybe his second too, or whoever it was. Okay, so let's look at his Rahu now, and then I'll go into his human design, and then we'll be done. So Rahu is in the 9th, with the moon. And Rahu is what you're moving towards and what you crave in this life. And so it's more craving higher knowledge, constantly learning different religions and philosophies, which is totally true for him. Enjoys activities with spiritual teachers and universities. It's a good position for spiritual seekers, which is totally true for him as being a priest from the Michael teachings. Father may be powerful and successful, which I think is true, but also intense and domineering. Because Rahu is pretty intense and powerful energy. So, and ninth house is father, so it kind of makes you have a big, grand, powerful father, worldly powerful father, and he inherited a lot of wealth from his father and stuff, who was very successful. So that all fits. Travels all over the world. Ninth house is long distance travel. So he's just craving, like, I got to have more travel. I got to travel more places. And if you read about his bio, it explains all that he's traveled so many different places. May be powerful, enjoys many worldly benefits. So that's his Rahu. It's in the sign of Pisces, which makes him drawn to psychology, metaphysics, mysticism, spirituality, and religion. He needs to devote energy to idealistic callings, benevolent endeavors, and the betterment of humankind. He should cultivate faith and develop spiritual nature. So that really fits with him, moving towards spirituality, towards Piscean things, metaphysics, psychology, spirituality, mysticism. All that really fits with him really well. So that's his Rahu. His K2 is in the third house over here with the sun in Virgo. So it being a third house makes him strong-willed, brave, and courageous. Gives him an interesting personality, lively and excited. Does well with fine arts like dance, music, and drama. Craves metaphysical and spiritual interests. K2 is kind of metaphysical and spiritual in itself, but it kind of means that in his past lives he was dealing with third house stuff, which is more communications. But because the sun is there's a lot of significations that he's going to be dealing with a lot of communication in his life. So that's a pretty big thing. So he's moving from communications and dealing with the arts a little bit too, and he's combining that with the higher philosophy and spirituality. So that's his axis there. So communication from the lower to higher realms, essentially. It's in Virgo, so what that means is his past life was restricted by material concerns, may have had a hypercritical nature and be critical from others in the past. Needs to overcome this and become open-hearted and accepting. So he's coming from the Virgo side of things, and now his focus is more on the Piscean stuff from his Rahu. So that's his overall chart for his Vedic astrology. I mean, he has a lot of planets that are in the same signs and houses. So, like, overall, we can say the ninth house was a really big thing for him. He's total ninth house significations, which is the higher knowledge, philosophy, spirituality, long distance travel, stuff like that. He has a lot of significations for having a good education, a nice real estate, stuff like that. But a lot of significations, all these are affecting his career. Through Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter, all those are combined together in the way that his career is going about. He has both of his malefics in the seventh house, which is difficult for relationships, but also makes him very disciplined and hard worker and stuff like that. And the K2 with Sun and Moon Rahu is just interesting characteristics. It makes him kind of an old soul, but also makes him very psychically oriented and sensitive. So that's his chart overall. I mean, a lot of spiritual stuff. When you see Rahu in the ninth house, which is spiritual, and in Pisces, very spiritual. So he's moving towards all that spirituality, which is big for him. So that's his Vedic astrology. We'll move on to his human design, and then we'll be done. So in human design, his type is a generator. And that's because he's got the sacral center defined, and he has no motor, which could be the sacral, emotional solar plexus, or the root, or the ego. If any of those were connected to his throat, then he would be a manifesting generator. But because he doesn't have any connections to the throat, it just makes him a regular generator. And he's got the profile 5-1 and the cross of the clarion, which I'll explain what all those are. So yeah, the generator is also known as the alchemist. This is the workforce and life force energy type. They're the builders and doers, the creatives, and they're designed to work. So the people who have this are just hard workers because they have tons of sacral energy that they're just carrying around all the time. They're the life force of the planet, essentially. They're the ones carrying around all the energy. They're the ones building everything, doing everything. They were in history, they were the slaves. They're the ones doing all the work. But the goal of the generator is to find the right things to focus on. The things that make you happy to work on. But the work is a very important thing. So work was really huge for him, and he did a lot of stuff, a lot of activity. So that's what the generators are like. There's a lot of generators. 35% of the population are generators, and another 35 are manifesting generators. So that's 70% are all the generating types. But as you can see down here, all these people are generators: Carl Jung, Steve Jobs, Robin Williams, Mahatma Gandhi, Albert Einstein, Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Joe Rogan, Richard Branson, Samuel L. Jackson, George H.W. Bush, Walt Disney, all kinds of people. There's tons of people that are generators. So that's his type. His profile is the heretic investigator, which is the 5-1. It's line 5 and line 1. This is the natural leader, guide, or teacher. And it deals with projection fields from other people. You kind of are always dealing with different ways that people perceive you. And so it's hard to show your true self because you're kind of always dealing with projections from other people telling you or seeing you in a certain way. And that could be either as like a savior or as a heretic. So this is kind of the archetype of Jesus. It's kind of what Jesus went through. He was the heretic. He was he was the savior and the heretic. He was the one who ended up creating a new religion through his influence that became the most popular religion on the planet. But at the time, he was crucified. So there was obviously he was dealing with projection fields from other people, which makes it difficult to deal with all these projection fields. So you can see with him, there's always some controversy with these people who have the line 5 heretic in their profile. So they're a little controversial. But a lot of people look up to them as well. So the one line makes you very deeply research oriented and meticulous, and you derive your self-worth from the work that you do. But the 5th line, all this stuff makes you very seductive and charming. But if you look at all these people down here, these are all the heretic profile people. Adolf Hitler, Ramana Maharshi, Heath Ledger, Raoul Hu, which is the guy who created the human design system. Martin Luther King Jr., you can see Savior Heretic there. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ken Wilber, Vladimir Putin, same thing. Savior Heretic, Bernie Sanders, George W. Bush, Britney Spears, and Jordan Peterson. So it's the leader. It's the leader, but it's just really difficult to get comfortable, and like you have to like learn how to project yourself and your image in the proper way where your inner self is actually matching the outer projections from other people. You have to constantly adjust the way that you're being perceived so that you're matching it the right way. So it's difficult, but it's an interesting one. So his cross is the cross of the clarion, which is the shocking messenger. It deals with shocking, initiating, and calling out new information. It shatters old patterns and communicates the unknown, mediating information. So everything that he's communicating about is destroying the old perceptions of things and trying to shock people in the process. Like people are shocked by what he's saying. He's initiating new things. But this comes into everything he did because he was dealing with the occult and like rituals and yoga, but also challenging sexuality. He was doing sex magic a lot. But everything he was teaching was he was a very controversial figure. He was known as the wickedest man in the world or whatever. So he's all about shocking, but he's communicating information that's shattering old patterns essentially. So that's what the cross is overall. So I'll go into each of the gene keys that are related to that, which are the 57, 51, 62, and 61. So the first one is 57, which is intuition. The high expression is having intuition that's in harmony with the outer world. You're sensitive to sound and vibration, sensitive to guidance and psychic perception. So he's basically psychic in the high expression of this. In the low expression, it's fear of what might be coming. You're tuned to fear. Instinct is internalized away from responsiveness into mental anxiety. So you're fearful and anxious in that sense. But in the high expression, you're actually psychic and intuitive. And he's definitely an intuitive. I think he was expressing his high expression a lot of the time, or a significant amount of the time. One of the gene keys is shock. That's the 51. And the high expression is facing personal fears, courageous leaps into the unknown. You're the first to initiate new things. It's portal into initiations and new awareness. And everything he did, like everything he taught, his whole Thelema religion, everything he did was all new stuff. And it was very shocking. And he was just engaging with that, facing his fears and leaping into the unknown and dealing with all this stuff that he felt like needed to be revealed to everybody. That was more of a shock. So that's interesting. On the low expression, there's a fear of the shock and the unknown. You're shaken. You're trying to feel superior. You're reckless and depressive. But again, it sounds like he actually did do this successfully in the high expression. So it's interesting. Gene key 62 is organizing thought. In the high expression, it's synergy of heart and mind and communication. The intellect is in service to the heart. It's a mediator of universal truths and is a logical mouthpiece for abstract concepts. Low expression is just obsession with facts, using only the intellect, fixation on small details over big picture. And the logical mind won't work with the abstract mind. And there's inflated opinions that obscure understanding. So communicating abstract concepts and universal truths and being aligned to the heart are the high expression of this. So I think he was doing that as well. The last gene key we're looking at is 61, which is unraveling mystery. The high expression is a release of mental pressure into creativity, inspiring thought that integrates body as art, activity, expression, and curious inquiry. The low expression is the mind questioning itself into psychosis. It tries to understand concepts that are beyond mental comprehension. So this deals with a lot of creativity and inspiration and expression when it's in its high expression. So that's those four gene keys are what make up that Clarion cross. These are all the gene keys that are involved in that. So you combine all those different characteristics together and it becomes this intuitive, shocking messenger that has something new to provide and share. So that's his cross. And we'll just look at his channels. So he's got the 1762, which is known as the organizer. So 1762 is this one right here. It's connecting the mind to the throat. This is the organizer and strategist. It expresses logic. It absorbs all facts and details to create a concrete opinion or recommendation and creates convincing arguments. They're futuristic think tanks, forever looking into the future to find solutions for systems, projects, and people. They're highly opinionated and forceful in debating. So it's like he's got his own logical process that he's always getting into, and he's absorbing all these facts and details to create his own opinion. And what's interesting about this is he's always working on it. He could be saying something in one day based on all the information he has and going into detail about all the different things that he's understanding. But this can constantly change day by day once he's getting more information and he's ready to adapt to that. But it gives him a very strong mental ability, communicating everything that he has, all his insight, and he's able to build his own way of thinking, essentially. So that's pretty cool. And his other channel is the channel of power. It's the 3457, which is this one right here, down here. It's these two lines right here connected. 34 is in the sacral and 57 is in the spleen. So the sacral is like the life force energy, and the spleen is more of like intuition, in the moment intuitions, instinct, stuff like that. So what this means is it makes you a powerhouse with empowering intuition. You can respond to your senses to create swift and decisive actions. There's power drawn to taking action to help others in distress. The intuition responds to cries for help, and they're propelled into action in interest of survival for self and others. So they're an example of how a self-empowered, vital, and unique human being lives, attuned to survival. So essentially means that his intuition is tied with his energy, powerful in that sense, and able to respond really quickly to things. So that's interesting to see that he's really tied to his intuition. His spleen center really explains a lot of his intuitive ability here. So that's everything here for his human design. He's generator, 5-1 profile with the cross of Clarion. All that really does fit with him really well. So that's everything. Those are the three systems all together. What you can see about him is he's a very spiritual, intuitive, psychic guy. He's a priest. He's got some scholar characteristics, king characteristics. He's leading because he's got the goal of dominance. So he's the one that has authority on talking about everything that he shared about and taught. So, and he was in power mode. He's engaging in the intellect. He's got that one channel from his mind to his throat. So he has his own logical process for sure. But he was very active, doing a lot of stuff, being a generator. And he was really focused on education, really educating himself so he can provide his whole philosophy that he's been building on his whole life, which is based on his this ninth house stuff, which is really big for him since it's the chart ruler is moon. So and all this stuff fits with his teaching the higher stuff with Jupiter influencing the 10th house, and also his creative and communicative stuff with Venus and Mercury. So that was also really big. He's an old soul. I mean, he's a priest. Very controversial figure. But his whole thing was about shocking people, which is what his cross was saying. It was all about shock. So that there you go. I mean, with the 5-1 profile, it makes him savior, heretic kind of energy that he's dealing with. So, and he was in the young soul age or the striving focus, so he was really still like he was on the level of mastery of that. So he was very focused on achieving a lot in the world and providing that to everybody else based on all his external achievement. So yeah, when you put that all together, I mean, he's a very interesting character, very spiritual in all these respects, and is a lot about communication and media. Uh, so there you go. That's the three systems. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to do some more spiritual figures at some point. I think I'll do Paramahansa Yogananda at some point, and some others, maybe Ramana Maharshi, Satya Sai Baba I have as well. But I'm also really interested in doing the charts for musicians and stuff like that. So I'm going to do some for that soon. I just did Kanye West, and I'm going to do Kid Cudi soon as well. I also have Travis Scott, so I'm going to do that too. But if you like these videos, like and subscribe. I'm going to have more coming. I'm going to separate this out into 3 parts so you can jump into any system you want to see what I talk about. Maybe these will get shorter. Right now we're at an hour and 41 minutes, so that's kind of long. But I'll figure it out as I go. So that's it. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.